This is Brian Krozik with Vigilant Firearms Training. In this video, I put together an ammo can GMRS radio. I think you're going to like it. It's got a lot of neat features. So stay tuned and thanks for watching. Okay, here is the radio itself. We'll start with the outside. I chose an ammo can because of its availability, durability, and the protection that it would offer to the radio components. I also chose to make the penetrations through the can so that the controls and I could operate and all the connections are made on the outside, so I don't really have to open up the cover to expose it to the weather or whatever. Here is the jack for the speaker mic. Here is the power jack and obviously the coax cable. So all those things are accessible on the outside. By drilling and making all those penetrations, I was concerned about, kind of compromising the integrity of the can. So before I spray painted it, I actually undercoated it with an automotive type undercoating to seal things up somewhat. I used silicone in those areas where it was appropriate too. So it is, I wouldn't say waterproof, but it certainly is weather tight. And then I spray painted it just to look a little bit better. And now something else on the outside is a voltmeter here, a digital voltmeter that I can access. And it's actually nice because with this latch closed, it offers some protection, yet I drilled a pretty good size viewing window there. It shows in DC volts or percent of battery capacity, so that's nice. You can also shut it off so that there's no drain on the battery when you don't need it on. Let's take a look inside the can. Okay, as you can see, there's a lot going on inside the can. I'm not going to do an unboxing or an uncanning, I guess, in this case. But as I pull things out, I will kind of explain what my thought process was and what the actual purpose of that component is. So there are a total of, 5 radios within this can. So the main radio that serves as the ammo can radio itself. There's 3 other smaller handhelds and then another UV5R, which is the basis for the ammo can build. So speaker mic, pretty important because that allows me to plug it in on the outside of the can and have that speaker on the outside with the lid closed and everything closed up, and just for convenient communications. Here's the spare UV5R. What's nice about going this route with the UV5R, or with any handheld, really, anyone would work in here, as long as it has the K1 Kenwood style connector for the speaker mic, any handheld would work in here. So I could just change these out. If something happened to the main radio, if something failed there or whatever, I could certainly replace it very easily. I've got a number of different power options for the ammo can build. This is obviously just alligator clips, and you could plug my cigarette lighter in there. That's how I've got it powered up now, is just with a standard cigarette lighter plug. Here's some of those spare radios I was talking about. We'll get them out of the way. And this radio here, which serves as the basis for the build, is actually hooked up with a battery eliminator, so it's powered through the outside source. But you wouldn't have to do that. If you wanted to, and you didn't have an outside source, you would just use one of the standard batteries. This happens to be the 3800 milliamp capacity battery that I leave, and it's charged up all the time in there. Here's an antenna, so if I wanted to go on the move with this particular radio, that would be very easy to do. It just kind of snaps down in here with the belt clip on, a little bracket I made, so it's nice and secure. Alright, another key component to this build is the BTEC amplifier, RF amplifier. Essentially what it does is takes the transmit power from the radio, which in this case, let's just say 4 watts, and multiplies it by a factor of approximately 10. Your mileage may vary. So we're up there in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 watt output from what was a 5 watt handheld. So obviously it gives you much more range and punch and power and whatnot when you're running that. Of course, if you're going to run the power amp, that is a bigger drain on your power supply, and you're going to have to take those things into consideration as well. But you can use it without that on and just straight through the radio itself. While we're on the subject of power, I also have a solar charged backup battery or power supply here that works really well. This one's actually 8,000 milliamp hours, so that works out pretty good. I've got USB adapter cord here that allows me to directly charge the UV5R battery. So the 3800 milliamp batteries anyways have a charging port right on the side. So I plug that in and I can charge this Obviously, with the solar charger out in the sun, you can charge your battery while the radio continues to operate. So that's another really good option. And I could charge the other little radios that same way without the bulk and necessity of a regular charge cradle. Now, we'll talk about antenna options. And there are kind of unlimited options, only by your imagination. This is one antenna that's kind of cool, one of the tactical antennas. I don't find them to be the highest quality as far as receive quality, but they certainly do work. They're serviceable. So with that screwed on, the outside bulk fitting, this radio would be ready to go, and it makes it nice because from a portability standpoint, pick it up by the handle and you go. There's no big bulky antenna to have to worry about catching on things or whatever. So it makes it kind of nice. So that goes in my antenna kit. I also have this bag that clips to the outside of the ammo can, and it's got other antenna options in here. One is just a coax manufactured dipole, which I made from a YouTube video that works exceptionally well. That could be tied up in a tree or whatever you want to do with it. There's some other coax cable in there that would extend so I could raise up my Ed Fong antenna that I've got with this ammo can too. I'll show you more about that one when I get outside because it's a little bit bulkier. So there's several different options. Or if I brought the can inside and wanted to use the antenna on my roof of my home, I could also do that, just the coax connection, and that would give me a whole lot more height and clear range. And why would I want to do that? Well, this ammo can radio is also a simplex repeater, and that is this little unit right here. Works as a repeater, and essentially what it does is, opposed to a duplex repeater that operates with an offset. So in other words, there's a frequency that you receive on, a frequency that you transmit on. With the simplex repeater, it's doing those both on the same frequency. So what happens, the radio would receive a transmission. It would record that transmission on the repeater, and then when you unkey, slight delay, then it just retransmits it. So if I'm at a higher elevation through my house antenna, maybe with the power amp plugged in, I could get much greater range and allow me to, two handhelds that are definitely outside the normal simplex range from each other because of terrain or obstacles or whatever it may be, or just distance. Now they'd be able to communicate via the simplex repeater. I'll demonstrate that in a little bit. And it's a really simple switch to change this from a regular two-way radio to that simplex repeater. I'll go over that in a second here. Okay, now I have the radio configured for simplex repeater operation, and it was simply a matter of unplugging the cord, the adapter cord that says speaker mic, and plugging in the one that says repeater. So that's the control cable for the repeater. I'll turn the repeater on here, and you can see the lights light up there. And now the feedback and the clipping on the repeater is controlled by the volume knob of the receiving radio. So it takes a little bit of experimentation to get it right, but I'll just do a little test here. What you'll hear is me transmit a message over the frequency, and the simplex repeater will repeat that message back to me, and then it'll be followed by an ID that I've already pre-recorded and programmed into the repeater. That will only happen once every hour after a new transmission. So in other words, if there's no transmissions for 8 hours, nothing will happen. But that first transmission will get the ID message, and then every hour after that, as long as transmissions continue. So I hope that made sense. So here we go, I'll just test it out. WRKX 607 54321 12345.
WRKX 607 54321 12345. Java HQ Simplex Repeater.
Okay, you also heard the confirmation tone at the end, in addition to the ID message. It takes a little bit of a learning curve, because everyone in your party has to understand that they may or may not hear the message twice. The way they can know it's time for them to go ahead and key up if they need to is to wait for that confirmation tone. You'll hear it here now. This is Brian, WRKX 607, Whiskey Romeo Kilo X-Ray, over.
This is Brian, WRKX 607, Whiskey Romeo Kilo X-Ray, over.
All right, so you heard the confirmation tone at the end, and that way your other parties would know that the repeater has cleared and it's okay for them to transmit their message. Now the simplex repeater will record very long transmissions, but typically you're not going to do that in this application where you're using it for, search and rescue or just hiking or whatever. It's usually brief transmissions, and that's the way it goes. So that is the ammo can build, the essentials to it. We'll go outside and I'll show you some of the antenna options that I've come up with. And I will say, I've had this thing for a good couple weeks now, and I've really been kind of dragging it around with me and beating it up as much as I can, trying to expose the shortcomings and whatever. And so far I'm really happy. Some of those tests have resulted in changes to the design, and I'm happy with those as well. So it was a fun build. I could have went a lot of different directions on the inside, obviously. Instead of a handheld, an inexpensive handheld in this case, the much maligned but much celebrated also UV5R, I could have put a little mobile in here. And that would have been better in some ways and maybe not as good in others with regards to the flexibility that I would have. So anyways, there it is. Let's head outside and I'll show you some of the antenna options. Okay, here's the ammo can just sitting on the back of my side-by-side. I have it hooked up power-wise to just this 12-volt automotive style jump pack. Now the antenna option I want to show you now is this one here that clips to the side of the can, and it is a Ed Fong J-pole antenna inside a PVC tube. He sends you the antenna element specifically tuned for GMRS, and he gives you the exact specs on the PVC. I think it's 34 inches long total, but don't quote me on that. Check it out when he sends you the instructions if you get one. PVC. This happens to be PR200 PVC, very light wall, and again, that's tuned specifically for GMRS, so you don't want to try and use anything else. To use it with the radio, you simply put the coax through that little bracket there. It's a little bit cumbersome and tough to get used to, but it clip it right up and it holds there fairly securely. And there you have it. That is the antenna, and up to full height. There you go. So that's how it hooks to the can. So you can throw that down on the ground anywhere, and it works really, really well. I'm impressed with the performance of the antenna overall. But I also here's the contents of that camouflage bag that I showed you that goes along with my radio, the antenna kit if you will. And this is just the extra coax, 18 feet of that, and this spool of cordage. That's the way I'm going to raise the antenna almost like a flag up onto a branch of somewhere, so I can get the additional elevation. And I think just kind of looking around here, I think I can get like 18 to 20 feet of elevation by getting the antenna up to those branches right there. So we'll see how many tosses it takes me to get it up there, but hopefully it'll go fairly smooth, and I'll show you how this works. Okay, here's that coil of cordage, and I'm not going to unwind all of it, but there's 50 feet on here, so there's plenty to get you where you need to go. But what I noticed is trying to throw this thing up around the limbs and whatnot, it's pretty tough. It's lightweight, and if the wind's blowing or there's other smaller branches in the way, it's going to be hard. So what I did is made two PVC panels, one for each side, bolted them together with them 4 bolts, and added an additional 6 bolts. You can see the heads of them right here with the nuts on the inside that you can't see, and that definitely gives you more weight to be able to fling this thing almost like a boomerang type arrangement to get it up and over and then carry back down so that it comes back down close to the ground so that I can grab it. So let's see how well I've planned this out. I'll try and throw it up around that branch. Okay, I've got the coil of cordage, neatly coiled at my feet here. I'm gonna try and throw this up over that branch. Okay, and then if things go well, just by whipping it, I should be able to get it to come down. There we go. Broke off a little branch there. Got the coax screwed on, 18 feet, and I've made this little fitting too, and I'll show you what happens there. Is as I'm pulling it up, the rope goes through that little clip right there, and that just keeps the antenna from swinging wildly if the wind picks up. and it'll actually help me bring the whole unit back down to the ground. So. Okay, I don't know if you'll be able to make it out or not, but there is the antenna. Okay, and here's the final antenna option that I have rolled up in that camo bag. This one works pretty cool and actually performs very well as well. I got the idea for this from one of our radio group friends who sent me a YouTube link, and it is manufactured out of just coax cable. RG58AU cable to be specific. Here's the center element coming this way, and here's the shielding going the other way, so it just forms a dipole. And it's very specific, obviously, with regards to the GMRS frequency, how long you cut these off and tune it. And it's actually pretty easy to tune. But I've got tied on the ends just mason's twine on each end about 5 feet, so you could string it up and tie it up and keep it nice and tight and steady. And it works well. Now, obviously, I only have it here 5 feet off the ground for the video purposes, but you could put this up as high as you wanted to, as long as you had enough coax to get to the radio. So that is another field antenna that I think works exceptionally well, very lightweight. It does take quite a bit of abuse though, because normal coax, you have it in place, it really doesn't get moved around much, but this is constantly going to be rolled up and unrolled and strung between branches and take some stress as those trees move if it's windy or whatever. So that's what's nice about the mason string, is there is considerable give to that string itself just by design. That's the way it works. Plus on this side you'll notice I've got it tied to a smaller sapling, so there's some give there as well. All right, I'm gonna hook this up and try and get some radio checks here tonight. WRKX 607, looking for a radio check on the Attica 575.
You're loud and clear. Coming into the repeater. I say again, loud and clear.
Very good, sir. Thank you very much. Whiskey Romeo Kilo X-Ray 607. Thanks for the radio check. I'll be listening. Talk to you soon.